It's one of those things where it's really intuitive once you know what you're doing. But until you know what you're doing, it's just weird.
It's just intimidating. Okay, I believe now we are live.
Ooh, perfect.
Hello, Facebook. Today we are talking about
How to give good feedback.
emphasis on good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because everything
Quality.
is feedback, but not all of it is helpful. Awesome. Well, Connor, since you are the one that we are welcoming back this week to the party after a few weeks
Yes.
off,
Yeah.
what do you think is the secret to giving good feedback?
I think like having that person's best interest in mind is like the most crucial. Like if you're doing it from a place of like empathy and understanding, like if you want what's best for them, then I think that the feedback is much more genuine and honest, and usually more tactfully put. So I think it's like you need to I think that's important. Like you really need to make sure that the feedback you're giving is in their best interest. It's like just because you're criticizing someone doesn't mean it's like you're being mean to them or it's because you don't like them or you're rude. Obviously, like giving feedback should be something so you can help them improve and become better.
Yeah, I usually don't give feedback to people I don't like very much. I just kind of move on.
Exactly.
The part of the whole point of giving feedback is like, hey, I care about you and I want this to be better. And here's how I think we can make it better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think another really important thing and kind of going along the same thing, because you don't want to just like leave them down in the dirt feeling like, oh, there is absolutely nothing good about me. I am terrible.
Yeah.
Because, that's shame, and shame doesn't help anyone grow, is making sure that you're including positive feedback with negative feedback. So it's a balanced view. I really love the way we do it here at Content Cucumber, which is gratitudes and blind spots. So the way feedback might be worded is, hey, I'm so grateful for the way that you contribute in our meetings. It's great to have you there. I've noticed that you've been late to them a lot lately. So I was wondering if we could talk about ways to help you be on time so you can contribute to and be a part of the whole thing. So just wording things like that to make sure that they know that they are appreciated and that there are things that they are doing right, as well as things that could be done better.
Yeah, I think something we hear a lot that's really good is like actionable feedback. Not just saying, this doesn't work, do it again. Coming with some actual like insights on how to make it better, not just why it's not good.
Yeah, we try really, really hard to make sure there's always at least something actionable, because that's just an exercise in frustration to be like, oh, okay, I know this isn't how you want it, but like what actually needs to change.
Yeah.
I think another really kind of important thing is the ability to listen and ask questions too with feedback, because maybe you think that someone needs feedback for whatever reason, but maybe that in the situation that they were in, maybe they did the best thing possible. And so I feel like even if you feel like someone needs some feedback, maybe asking them a question first, like, hey, how did you think this went? And then when you talk about it, then you open up the ability to kind of be like, hey, I know that you said you didn't think it went well. Here's what I think, happened, but what do you think happened too? And kind of just opening up a dialogue rather than a hey, this is what you did wrong. Fix it.
Yeah, like getting them in on their own feedback.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes it more productive for everybody.
Yeah. Or even help them or help guide them to that same conclusion that essentially you were going to have, because then it'll be so much more powerful if they kind of come up with it themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's like a realization.
Yeah,
and people are resistant.
Yeah,
so.
That also can give you an idea of how you perceived it differently, because it can give them space to say, hey, maybe this didn't go super well, but it can also give them space to, if they think it went well, why? Because maybe their goal isn't the same as what you thought their goal was, and so it can allow space for that too.
Yeah.
Another piece of feedback that Puka is teaching us right now is make sure you give room for other people to talk. and don't just shout over them with what you think, because it's really important to make sure there's space in the conversation. And if you need to, like, set a timer so that you can trade off to make sure it's not super imbalanced.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Have like a timer for feedback, so you're not just rambling. I think having like a method of feedback can be effective in some ways too, like some sort of system, like a grading system, or that's like a classic school move.
Yeah.
Like when you have a big presentation and they give you the rubric before the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rubrics are really, really helpful.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I
They
think
can be
something like
productive.
that too would kind of help take away some of the negative words that tend to come with feedback that are really just unnecessary. That it's like, you don't, it's not that it is bad, it's that there's things that you can fix, or that there's things that don't lend themselves to whatever project you're doing. And I think having more of a structure of how you give feedback helps get rid of those.
It also helps kind of like reduce the risk of someone not giving feedback because they feel like it's uncomfortable. Because if they have a rubric available, it's no longer like, hey, it's all up to you to jump at maybe out of your comfort zone and just tell this person what they did wrong. Instead, you have a rubric, and with the rubric, because you're expected to fill out that rubric, it's really easy to say, hey, you did great on these 3 things, but I'm going to give you a 2 out of 5 on this because whatever reason.
Yeah, and I think that kind of in the same way, even if it's a project, so you're not giving feedback to a person as much as just like on a specific thing, is, when we're workshopping copy, sometimes we'll be like, hey, okay, this is at like a 6. Okay, what would get it from a 6 to a 7? What would get it from a 7 to an 8? And that way everyone's clear on where the current project stands and what would need to happen. Because I think that's another thing really important about rubrics is you can say, hey, like, this is at a B level project, here's how to get to an A, or it's really broken down, instead of it just being like, here's an A, here's an F, good luck figuring out what's in between. There's a really clear scale.
Mm-hmm.
That also gives them a good opportunity to kind of answer and give themselves feedback if you like frame it like that. Like, hey, you may be at a 2, but what can you do? What can we do to get you to a 4 out of 5 or to a 10 out of 10?
Yeah.
Having that kind of communication too makes it so there's space for someone to be like, I actually don't know how to do that, or I've not done that before, rather than just being like, well, I just should redo it, even though I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a huge part of stuff like that is really just being able to say, hey, they probably just don't know that this could be better, or they might not realize ways this could be better.
Yeah.
And letting them know that, hey, like, there's opportunity for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see your own blind spots. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to recognize what you're doing wrong until someone points it out and you're like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then it helps you down the line when you do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, okay, I'm aware of this. So feedback isn't just about like the current task at hand.
Yeah.
It's like a lesson to be able to apply to your future self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no one comes into any job already knowing everything.
No.
So it's like, if you are just like, thank you for the feedback, I actually did not even know I was supposed to do that part of this. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think something that would be really interesting to kind of build off of this with is, I think we shared a lot of really good tips on how to give good feedback that we've all learned. What would you say are some tips for people who are receiving feedback?
That's a good one.
And
Think
how to
letting
be
go
in
of
that.
ego.
Yeah.
Like, don't have an ego about it.
Waiting a minute to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think not taking it personally is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people tend to naturally take it personally when you really shouldn't, because it's not about you, it's about whatever they're giving feedback on. And even if you didn't know something that's not a negative thing towards you, you just need to learn it, and that's okay.
Yeah, and kind of building off of that, just knowing how to break yourself out of shame when you may be feeling it, and how to recognize it, because the there's a big difference between, oh, I could have done that better, darn, and then moving on, or feeling like somehow you are flawed inherently. And so being able to recognize that in yourself, so you don't respond out of that place of like, oh, they just think I'm bad. And being able to say, okay, I'm gonna go like take a walk, I'm gonna go do a meditation, I'm gonna go chill. Because in addition to not taking it personally, just knowing those signs and being able to self-regulate. I think another, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, please.
No, you're good.
All right. I was gonna say, I think another important thing is also recognizing feedback as like an opportunity too. I feel like it's kind of intimidating sometimes to get feedback from maybe like an authority figure and you're like, oh no, I'm in trouble, right? Or I am, you know, my job's at risk, or, you know, maybe my teacher thinks I'm doing poorly. Maybe they're gonna talk to someone, you know, whatever that authority figure is. But instead of recognizing it as an opportunity to then like impress that person, because if they give you feedback, you know, then you have that opportunity to take that feedback and improve on it, and, you know, maybe even, you know, exceed their expectations. So really, anytime anyone gives you feedback, it's more than anything, it's an opportunity to then succeed and impress that person, and you know, do more than anyone ever expected, which is, I think, always really cool.
And yeah, I mean, going from there with implementing feedback is really important. Part of that is going to involve getting specific. So if, you know, you feel like you're not totally clear on the action steps of the feedback, maybe the feedback you're receiving isn't, hey, you did this, please do this, but instead it's just kind of like, hey, don't do this. Be able to ask questions of, okay, what can I do instead? Or what would have been a better response in that situation? Or what would have, you know, taken this project from one that needs revising to something that's really going to impress you? And ask those clarifying questions so that you can know, okay, this is exactly what I'm getting feedback on and how I can do better. Awesome. Do we have anything else to share with our audience today?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Give us some feedback. How do you think we
Yeah,
did?
how did we do?
How do we do?
And tune back in next week, same time, same place, to see how we implement it. All right. Have a great week, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.